The laboratory at the Galactic Institute of Consciousness Studies hummed with energy that seemed to bridge the gap between hard science and something approaching magic, as Dr. Elena Rodriguez calibrated neural interface equipment that represented the culmination of 15 years dedicated to understanding how different species experience reality through fundamentally incompatible forms of consciousness. Her latest project involved creating direct neural connections that would allow beings to experience sensations exactly as other species perceive them, opening possibilities for empathy that transcended intellectual understanding. Consciousness, Elena explained to her research partner while adjusting crystalline headsets that looked like they belonged in science fiction rather than legitimate research facilities, operates through mechanisms so different between species that we might as well be trying to translate colors to creatures that evolved without sight. Until now, we could only theorize about alien sensation, never experience it directly. Dr. Lyra Vet has listened with the intense focus that marked her as one of the galaxy's most promising young neurobiologists, her pointed ears and empathic abilities making her uniquely qualified to study consciousness interfaces between different forms of awareness. As a Zephyrian, she experienced physical sensation through empathic resonance rather than direct nerve stimulation, creating fascinating opportunities for research that neither species could pursue independently. Zephyrian empathic perception, she observed while reviewing technical specifications for neural connectors that combined human neuroscience with her species' understanding of consciousness networks, allows us to sense emotional states and intentions, but we cannot comprehend the direct physical sensations that define so much of human experience and social interaction. Elena's neural interface technology represented collaborative research between species whose approaches to consciousness were so different that meaningful cooperation had seemed impossible until breakthrough discoveries revealed how quantum entanglement could bridge gaps between electrical brain activity and empathic awareness operating through mechanisms that human science was still struggling to understand. The neural connector essentially creates temporary bridges between different types of consciousness, Elena continued while checking safety protocols that ensured participants wouldn't suffer permanent damage from connecting brains that evolution never intended to interface directly. Users can experience sensations exactly as other species perceive them, gaining understanding that purely intellectual study cannot provide. The research facility included carefully controlled environments where volunteers from different species could safely explore cross-cultural sensation sharing while medical monitoring systems tracked neural activity patterns that provided data about consciousness interaction across evolutionary boundaries that nature had spent millions of years establishing. Lyra's enthusiasm for the project stemmed from scientific curiosity combined with personal interest in human experiences that her empathic abilities could observe but not replicate. Zephyrian perception provided emotional understanding without direct access to the nerve-based sensations that shaped human consciousness and social development. Human descriptions of physical experiences, she noted while studying research data about sensation types that didn't exist in Zephyrian awareness, include concepts like tickling that translate poorly to empathic understanding. We can sense the emotional responses these sensations create, but not the actual physical experience that produces such distinctive reactions. Elena's team had successfully demonstrated neural interfaces that allowed humans to experience Zephyrian empathic perception, creating profound insights into emotional networks that connected entire communities through shared feelings and collective decision-making processes that operated without individual consciousness barriers that defined human social organization. The reverse connection, Elena explained while working on technical challenges that had prevented Zephyrian access to human sensation, requires essentially building new neurological pathways that can translate nerve stimulation into empathic experiences that Zephyrian brains can interpret correctly. The complexity involved converting electrical signals from human nervous systems into quantum resonance patterns that Zephyrian empathic centers could process as meaningful sensation rather than incomprehensible noise that overwhelmed consciousness designed for completely different input methods. Zephyrian consciousness operates through distributed networks rather than centralized nervous systems, Elena noted while adjusting interface parameters that had to account for fundamental differences in how awareness functioned between species whose evolutionary paths had produced entirely different solutions to the challenges of perception and cognition. Lyra volunteered as the primary test subject for human sensation experiences, her scientific training overriding natural caution about allowing alien technology to interface directly with empathic centers that had never been designed to process nerve-based stimulation from creatures whose consciousness operated according to completely different principles. The safety protocols indicate that temporary neural connections cannot cause permanent changes to empathic abilities, she confirmed while reviewing medical data that tracked every aspect of cross-species consciousness interface. The connectors create translation bridges rather than altering existing neurological structures. Elena's personal interest in the project extended beyond pure research to questions about consciousness, identity, and the possibilities for understanding that emerged when beings could literally experience reality through each other's perceptual frameworks rather than relying on inadequate translation through language and intellectual analysis. The first successful tests involved basic sensations like temperature and pressure that translated relatively easily between different neurological architectures. Lyra's experience of human warmth perception proved remarkably different from Zephyrian temperature awareness, which operated through empathic resonance with environmental energy rather than direct skin contact with heat sources. Human temperature sensation creates localized awareness that feels completely different from empathic environmental consciousness, she reported with obvious fascination. The directness of nerve stimulation produces immediate, specific responses rather than the distributed awareness that characterizes our species' perception of thermal conditions. The breakthrough discoveries attracted attention from consciousness researchers throughout the galaxy who recognized revolutionary implications of technology that allowed direct sensation sharing between species whose evolutionary development had produced completely different approaches to perceiving and processing reality. Successful neural interface connections, Elena observed while documenting research that was transforming understanding of consciousness and identity, prove that species barriers are technological challenges rather than fundamental obstacles to empathy and communication between different forms of awareness. As the project advanced toward testing more complex sensations that would challenge the interface's ability to translate experiences unique to specific forms of consciousness, Elena and Lyra developed both professional partnership and personal friendship based on shared curiosity about the mysteries of awareness and the possibilities for connection that transcended evolutionary limitations. The implications, Lyra reflected while preparing for experiments that would test whether uniquely human sensations could be translated into empathic experiences that her consciousness could interpret meaningfully, extend beyond scientific research to questions about identity, relationship, and the possibilities for intimacy between beings whose natural abilities never allowed such direct sharing of internal experience. Elena's recognition that their research was approaching territory where science merged with philosophy and personal exploration created anticipation for discoveries that would challenge assumptions about consciousness, sensation, and the boundaries that defined individual identity versus shared experience. The laboratory's quantum resonance detectors registered increasing harmony between human and Zephyrian consciousness patterns as their collaboration deepened, suggesting that neural interface technology was facilitating not just scientific breakthrough but personal connection that neither researcher had anticipated when they began exploring how different species could share the most intimate aspects of their perceptual experience through technological innovation guided by mutual trust and scientific rigor. The breakthrough in human sensation translation occurred when Elena successfully calibrated the neural interface to convert physical nerve stimulation into empathic patterns that Lyra's consciousness could interpret as direct experience rather than merely observing emotional responses from a distance. The first test involved simple touch sensations that immediately revealed profound differences between species' approaches to physical interaction and social bonding. Neural interface activation beginning, Elena announced while monitoring readouts that tracked both human brain activity and Zephyrian empathic resonance patterns. Starting with minimal tactile stimulation to allow gradual adaptation to nerve-based sensation translation. Lyra's preparation involved focusing her empathic centers to receive translated experiences that no member of her species had ever encountered through direct sensation rather than empathic observation of human emotional responses. Her consciousness needed to learn entirely new methods for processing stimuli that Zephyrian evolution had never equipped her to handle. Human touch sensation, she reported with wonder while experiencing gentle contact through the neural connector, creates immediate awareness of pressure, texture, and temperature that feels completely different from empathic understanding of physical interaction. The directness of nerve response produces sensations that our species associates with emotional intimacy rather than simple physical contact. Elena monitored the neural interface readings while carefully controlling intensity and type of sensations to ensure that Lyra's empathic centers could process human nerve responses without overwhelming consciousness that had evolved for completely different input methods. The translation process required constant adjustment to maintain safe connection levels. The empathic translation of human nerve sensation appears to create new neural pathways, Elena observed while reviewing consciousness monitoring data that showed unprecedented adaptation occurring in real time. Your empathic centers are essentially learning to interpret nerve signals as feeling patterns that your brain can integrate with existing perceptual frameworks. Lyra's scientific training provided detailed feedback about the translation process that helped Elena refine interface connections while exploring how different types of human sensation translated into empathic experiences that Zephyrian consciousness could comprehend and enjoy rather than simply endure as foreign stimuli. Pressure sensations translate to empathic awareness of presence and attention that feels more intimate than visual observation, she described while experiencing various types of human touch through the neural connector. Human physical sensation seems designed to create emotional connections through direct nerve contact in ways that our empathic abilities observe but cannot replicate. The research progressed to more complex sensations that revealed how human physical experience shaped emotional responses and social interactions in ways that empathic species understood intellectually but could never experience directly through their natural perceptual abilities. Temperature variations through human skin contact, Lyra reported during extended testing sessions, create localized awareness that combines with emotional responses to produce integrated experiences of comfort, pleasure, or discomfort that our distributed empathic perception cannot replicate accurately. Elena's careful calibration of neural interface settings allowed exploration of sensations ranging from basic touch to complex experiences involving multiple nerve responses, creating unified perceptual experiences that defined human understanding of physical interaction and emotional bonding. Human sensory integration creates unified experiences that our empathic abilities perceive as emotional patterns but cannot replicate as direct physical awareness, Lyra noted while experiencing combinations of pressure, temperature, and texture through neural translation that was becoming increasingly natural as her consciousness adapted. The successful translation of basic human sensations opened possibilities for exploring experiences unique to nerve-based perception that could provide Zephyrians with unprecedented understanding of human consciousness and social development while advancing scientific knowledge about the flexibility of awareness across species boundaries. Each translated sensation, Elena documented while reviewing breakthrough data, demonstrates that consciousness is more adaptable than evolutionary theory suggested. Lyra's brain is learning to process alien stimuli as natural experiences rather than foreign sensations requiring conscious interpretation. The research team's growing confidence in neural interface safety and effectiveness led to planning for tests involving more complex human experiences that combined physical sensation with emotional and social components that define distinctively human responses to environmental stimuli. The next phase, Elena explained while preparing for advanced sensation translation experiments, involves testing experiences that are uniquely human in their combination of physical nerve response and emotional reaction, sensations that require both direct stimulus and complex psychological processing. Lyra's enthusiasm for exploring the full range of human experience made her an eager volunteer for testing sensation translation that would challenge the neural interface's ability to convert complex physical responses into empathic experiences that her consciousness could interpret meaningfully. One sensation that particularly intrigues me, she admitted while reviewing human neurological research, is the phenomenon your species calls tickling, a physical experience that combines nerve stimulation with social and emotional responses that seem central to human bonding and stress relief mechanisms. Elena's explanation of tickling sensation revealed its complexity as an experience that involved light touch stimulating nerve endings in ways that created involuntary physical responses combined with emotional reactions ranging from joy to discomfort depending on social context and personal relationships. Tickling involves nerve stimulation that creates involuntary muscle responses combined with emotional reactions that depend on social context, Elena elaborated while reviewing research about sensation that was uniquely human in its integration of physical and psychological components. It's one of our most distinctive sensations because it requires both physical nerve response and complex emotional processing. The scientific significance of successfully translating tickling sensation extended beyond pure research to implications for understanding how physical experience shaped emotional development and social relationships in species whose evolutionary path included nerve-based sensation as foundation for consciousness and community bonding. Zephyrian empathic perception can understand the emotional responses that humans experience during tickling, Lyra observed while preparing for testing that would challenge neural interface technology, but we cannot comprehend the physical sensation that creates such distinctive reactions. This could provide unprecedented insight into human social bonding mechanisms. Elena's preparation for tickling sensation translation required careful calibration of neural interface settings that must convert not just physical nerve stimulation but complex emotional responses that made tickling a social experience rather than simple physical contact between individuals. The neural connector will need to translate both the physical sensation and the social-emotional context, Elena explained while adjusting interface parameters for the most complex sensation translation attempted. Tickling isn't just nerve stimulation. It's a complete experience that combines physical response with social bonding and emotional communication. Lyra's anticipation for experiencing tickling through neural interface translation reflected both scientific curiosity and personal interest in understanding human experiences that her empathic abilities could observe but never replicate through natural Zephyrian consciousness. This represents the ultimate test of neural interface technology, she realized while preparing for sensation that would determine whether consciousness barriers between species could be completely overcome through technological innovation guided by scientific rigor and mutual trust. The laboratory's quantum resonance detectors showed increasing synchronization between human and Zephyrian consciousness patterns as Elena and Lyra prepared for the most ambitious neural interface experiment attempted, one that would either demonstrate the unlimited potential for cross-species understanding or reveal fundamental limitations that technology couldn't overcome. The neural interface activation for tickling sensation translation began with Elena making final adjustments to empathic resonance patterns while Lyra prepared her consciousness to receive the most complex human experience attempted through cross-species neural connection. The laboratory's monitoring systems tracked every aspect of the procedure that would either demonstrate revolutionary breakthrough or reveal fundamental limitations of consciousness sharing technology. Beginning tickling sensation translation, Elena announced while initiating neural connector sequences that would convert human nerve responses into empathic patterns that Lyra's consciousness could interpret as direct experience. Starting with minimal intensity to allow gradual adaptation to both physical sensation components and social-emotional contexts. Lyra's first experience of tickling through the neural interface produced immediate and overwhelming responses that surprised both researchers with their intensity and complexity. Her empathic centers interpreted the translated nerve stimulation as waves of sensation that combined physical awareness with emotional experiences, creating unprecedented understanding of human social interaction mechanisms. "This is extraordinary," Lyra gasped while experiencing sensations that her species had no natural equivalent for, her consciousness struggling to process stimuli that felt simultaneously foreign and delightful. The physical sensation creates involuntary responses that combine with emotional awareness of social connection and shared joy. "I understand now why humans use tickling for bonding and playful interaction." Elena monitored neural interface readings while observing Lyra's reactions to sensations that revealed how human physical experience shaped emotional development and social relationships in ways that empathic species could understand theoretically but could never replicate through their natural perceptual abilities. The empathic translation appears to be creating new neural pathways that allow your brain to process physical stimuli as emotional experiences, Elena noted while reviewing consciousness monitoring data that showed unprecedented adaptation occurring in real time. Your empathic centers are essentially learning to feel human nerve responses as Zephyrian emotion patterns. Lyra's laughter during the tickling sensation translation provided breakthrough evidence that neural interface technology could successfully convert species-specific experiences into formats that different consciousness architectures could interpret and enjoy. Her genuine delight in experiencing human sensation demonstrated potential for technology to create unprecedented intimacy between species. Human tickling sensation combines physical surprise with emotional joy in ways that create immediate social bonding, she explained between episodes of laughter that sounded remarkably similar to human responses despite operating through completely different neurological mechanisms. No wonder your species uses this for relationship building and stress relief. The successful translation of tickling opened possibilities for exploring other uniquely human experiences that could provide Zephyrians with direct understanding of physical pleasure, social bonding mechanisms, and emotional responses that shaped human culture and interpersonal relationships in ways that empathic observation could never fully reveal. The neural interface is translating not just the physical sensation but the emotional context, Elena realized while documenting breakthrough discoveries. You're experiencing tickling as both nerve stimulation and social communication, exactly as humans do when consciousness processes combine physical and emotional responses. Lyra's continued experience with tickling sensation through neural interface revealed adaptation patterns that suggested Zephyrian consciousness could learn to interpret human nerve responses as natural experiences rather than foreign sensations requiring conscious translation through empathic intermediation. The tickling experience feels increasingly natural as my empathic centers adapt to interpreting nerve stimulation patterns, she observed while sensation continued through extended testing periods. It's as if my consciousness is learning to speak human sensation language fluently rather than relying on translation. Elena's scientific excitement about the breakthrough combined with personal joy at seeing Lyra experience sensations that revealed new dimensions of consciousness exploration and cross-species understanding that their collaboration had made possible through technological innovation and mutual trust. This changes everything we thought we knew about consciousness barriers, Elena declared while reviewing data that documented successful translation of the most complex human sensation attempted. If we can share tickling, which combines physical, emotional, and social components, we can potentially translate any experience between species whose consciousness operates through different mechanisms. The research implications extended beyond individual sensation sharing to possibilities for permanent neural interface connections that could allow species to experience reality through multiple perceptual frameworks simultaneously, creating consciousness that transcended limitations of single-species evolutionary development. The adaptation patterns suggest that extended neural interface connection could create permanent enhancement, Elena observed while monitoring Lyra's consciousness integration of human sensation capabilities. Your empathic centers are developing lasting ability to process nerve-based stimuli as natural empathic experiences. Lyra's growing comfort with tickling sensation through neural interface demonstrated that consciousness was more flexible than evolutionary theory suggested, capable of learning to interpret alien stimuli as meaningful experiences rather than foreign intrusions requiring defensive responses. I can feel the tickling sensation becoming part of my natural awareness, she reported while consciousness monitoring showed unprecedented integration between human nerve response translation and Zephyrian empathic processing. My brain is creating permanent pathways that allow human sensation to feel as natural as my own species' empathic perception. The breakthrough discovery that consciousness could adapt permanently to alien sensation opened possibilities for enhanced beings who combined multiple species' perceptual capabilities through technological augmentation that expanded awareness beyond evolutionary limitations while preserving unique characteristics that define different forms of consciousness. Enhanced consciousness through neural interface technology, Elena realized while documenting discoveries that would revolutionize understanding of awareness and identity, could allow beings to experience reality through multiple perceptual frameworks simultaneously while maintaining individual identity and cultural background. Lyra's experience with tickling sensation had evolved from artificial translation to natural integration, demonstrating that neural interface technology could create genuine rather than simulated cross-species consciousness sharing that enhanced rather than replaced natural empathic abilities. The tickling experience now feels like a natural part of my consciousness, she confirmed while enjoying sensations that had become integrated with her empathic awareness. I'm not just experiencing translated human nerve responses, I'm feeling tickling as both human sensation and Zephyrian empathic joy simultaneously. Elena's recognition that their breakthrough had personal as well as scientific implications led to deeper consideration of how consciousness-sharing technology could transform relationships between species whose natural abilities had previously made intimate understanding impossible despite intellectual appreciation for each other's qualities. Shared sensation creates empathy that transcends intellectual understanding, she observed while watching Lyra experience joy through both human nerve response and Zephyrian empathic perception. When beings can feel each other's experiences directly, the barriers between species become opportunities for enhanced connection rather than obstacles to relationship formation. The Neural Interface Laboratory had become the site of humanity's first successful creation of enhanced consciousness that combined multiple species awareness capabilities, proving that technology could expand rather than replace natural empathy while opening possibilities for intimacy that transcended evolutionary boundaries through scientific innovation guided by curiosity and care. The success of Tickling sensation translation transformed Elena and Lyra's research from academic investigation into personal exploration of connection possibilities that neither researcher had anticipated when they began their neural interface project. The shared experience of sensation created intimacy that transcended species boundaries while revealing new dimensions of consciousness that challenged fundamental assumptions about identity and relationship formation. The neural interface has created understanding that goes beyond intellectual knowledge to genuine empathy based on shared experience, Lyra observed while reflecting on her permanent integration of human sensation capabilities. I now comprehend human emotional responses because I've felt the physical sensations that create them through my own consciousness rather than empathic observation. Elena's documentation of their breakthrough included both scientific analysis and personal reflection on how technology enabling consciousness sharing could revolutionize relationships between species whose evolutionary paths had produced completely different approaches to perception and social bonding. Shared sensation creates empathy that purely intellectual study cannot achieve, she noted while reviewing research data that documented unprecedented consciousness integration. When beings can experience reality through each other's awareness frameworks, barriers between species become opportunities for enhanced understanding rather than obstacles to meaningful communication. The research team's success attracted attention from consciousness researchers throughout the galaxy who recognized revolutionary implications of technology that allowed direct experience sharing between species whose neurological architectures had evolved under completely different conditions and selective pressures. The applications extend beyond pure research to therapeutic interventions, diplomatic training, and educational programs, Elena explained during presentations to the Galactic Institute of Consciousness Studies. Neural interface technology could eliminate prejudice by allowing beings to literally experience life through other species' perceptual frameworks. Lyra's continued volunteering for sensation translation experiments revealed her growing fascination with human experience and desire to understand the physical foundations of emotions and social interactions that shaped human culture and individual development in ways that empathic observation could never fully reveal. Each new sensation provides insights into how your species developed emotional responses and relationship patterns, she reported while experiencing various forms of human physical pleasure and social bonding mechanisms through neural interface translation. Our empathic abilities can observe these experiences but cannot comprehend their significance without direct sensation sharing. The personal relationship between Elena and Lyra evolved beyond professional collaboration as shared sensation experiences created emotional bonds that neither researcher had expected when they began exploring cross-species consciousness connection through technological innovation. The intimacy of shared sensation creates relationships that exist in previously impossible territory, Elena reflected while considering implications of their growing connection. We're forming bonds that transcend species boundaries through direct experience sharing that makes understanding possible at levels that language and empathy alone cannot achieve. Their continued research produced breakthrough discoveries about consciousness, identity, and possibilities for connection that emerged when technology enabled beings to transcend limitations of single-species perceptual frameworks through direct experience sharing that created understanding impossible through conventional communication methods. Our work demonstrates that species barriers are technological challenges rather than fundamental obstacles to understanding and connection, Lyra observed while planning future experiments that would expand consciousness sharing capabilities. When beings can share awareness through neural interfaces, possibilities for empathy and intimacy become unlimited. The neural interface technology development attracted funding and support from organizations throughout the galaxy that recognized potential for consciousness sharing to revolutionize diplomacy, education, therapy, and relationship formation between species whose differences had previously created insurmountable barriers to genuine understanding. Elena's leadership of the expanded research program included training other scientists in neural interface technology while ensuring that consciousness-sharing capabilities were developed responsibly with appropriate safeguards for participants whose brains were interfacing across evolutionary boundaries that nature had never intended to bridge. The responsibility includes ensuring that consciousness-sharing technology enhances rather than replaces natural empathy and understanding, she acknowledged while establishing protocols for broader neural interface applications. We must provide access to alien experiences that educate and inspire rather than overwhelm or damage existing consciousness structures. Lyra's role as primary expert in Zephyrian consciousness adaptation to human sensation made her essential to research that continued exploring how different species could learn to interpret alien experiences as natural sensations rather than foreign stimuli requiring conscious translation through technological intermediation. My empathic centers have developed permanent pathways for interpreting human nerve responses as Zephyrian emotional experiences, she explained while undergoing long-term neural interface connections that demonstrated lasting consciousness enhancement. I can now feel human sensations as naturally as my own species' empathic perceptions. The permanent adaptation suggested possibilities for enhanced beings who combined multiple species' perceptual capabilities through technological augmentation that expanded consciousness beyond evolutionary limitations while preserving unique characteristics that define different forms of awareness and cultural identity. Enhanced consciousness could allow beings to experience reality through multiple perceptual frameworks simultaneously, Elena realized while documenting Lyra's adaptation patterns that showed unprecedented consciousness integration. We could create awareness that transcends single-species limitations while maintaining individual identity and cultural background. Their personal relationship developed into partnership that combined romantic attraction with shared fascination for consciousness exploration, creating bonds that existed in territory between species that technology had made accessible for the first time in galactic history. Love becomes possible between any conscious beings when technology allows genuine understanding of each other's internal experiences, Lyra observed while experiencing human emotional responses through both empathic perception and direct sensation sharing simultaneously. Neural interface connection creates intimacy that transcends biological boundaries. The research institute they established became the premier center for consciousness sharing technology, facilitating relationships and understanding between species throughout the galaxy while ensuring that neural interface development served cooperation and empathy rather than exploitation or psychological manipulation. Our legacy includes proving that barriers between conscious beings can be bridged through technology guided by empathy and scientific rigor, Elena reflected while watching graduates of their program facilitate understanding between species whose conflicts had seemed irreconcilable before consciousness sharing provided direct experience of each other's perceptual frameworks. The institutional reforms that followed their breakthrough included consciousness sharing programs in diplomatic training, therapeutic applications for trauma recovery, and educational initiatives that allowed students to experience learning through multiple species awareness capabilities simultaneously. Enhanced consciousness through neural interface technology, Lyra explained during conferences that attracted representatives from civilizations throughout the galaxy, demonstrates that awareness can transcend evolutionary limitations when beings choose connection over isolation and understanding over prejudice. Elena's continued research into consciousness enhancement produced technologies that allowed permanent integration of multiple species' perceptual capabilities while preserving individual identity and cultural background, creating possibilities for beings whose awareness combined the best aspects of different evolutionary approaches to consciousness and perception. The tickling sensation that began our breakthrough, she observed while watching their daughter experience both human nerve response and Zephyrian empathic perception as natural aspects of her enhanced consciousness, opened pathways to understanding that transformed our conception of identity, relationship, and the possibilities for connection between any forms of conscious awareness. Their daughter represented the next evolution of consciousness, beings who naturally combined multiple species' perceptual capabilities without technological mediation, demonstrating that enhanced awareness could become an inherited rather than artificial achievement for children whose parents had chosen love over the limitations of single-species development. Discovery and sensation forge intimacy that transcends biology, Lyra concluded while experiencing tickling through both human nerve response and Zephyrian empathic translation simultaneously. When beings choose connection over separation and allow technology to serve love rather than division. Their work continued in research facilities throughout the galaxy where consciousness-sharing technology facilitated understanding and relationship formation between species whose differences had once seemed insurmountable, proving that any barriers between aware beings could be overcome through scientific innovation guided by empathy and the courage to explore previously impossible territories of connection and shared joy. The neural interface laboratory where their breakthrough began had become a symbol of possibilities that emerged when beings chose to expand rather than limit their consciousness, demonstrating that technology could serve love, understanding, and the creation of bonds that transcended any boundaries that evolution or culture had established between different forms of aware and feeling life.